to the Nerdy Needs Midseason Showdown, ladies and gentlemen. After 5 rounds of incredible Swiss battling, we have gotten to our top 8 cut. I'm Joe Carlino. I'm once again joined by Matt Stevenson. Matt, what a tournament right now, bud.
We've seen a lot of interesting things happen, be it very close games, new interactions, like anything like that. It's just been a good one.
Exactly. As we just saw in round 5, we saw one of the most unique interactions we've ever seen, and that actually might have determined our top cut bracket here, as we do see.
It determined the seedings more than anything, because from what it looks like, Adit still made it in.
Which is a...
I would have felt so bad for him if he actually missed top cut off of just a new interaction that everyone just figured out just about right now.
And honestly, he did say that his only 2 losses were to Matt Laughlin and Hunter Braum, so...
Very high resistance.
So very high resistance. So it definitely helped him out, even though with the losses. But the way he did lose was a little bit unfortunate. Because again, like we said, we had no idea about that interaction until literally last round. But congratulations to all 8 of our competitors who've made it to the top cut bracket.
An interesting thing to note as well is, like, speaking of people who have bounced back, Andrew Navarro actually getting back into top cut after what was unfortunate, like to put it like in like the nicest way possible, a very unfortunate series of events that happened to him in round 3 against Jonathan Martin.
Just a little unfortunate in that first game. But ladies and gentlemen, we're about to get into our top 8 matchup. We have Elijah Tatum, our only undefeated player in Swiss, going up against Joven Teixeira. And honestly, I mean, we saw how Elijah's team worked out in his matchup on stream. But Joven has a little bit of a unique combination of Pokemon on his side.
I'm looking at the team sheet right now, and I'm seeing I've actually been seeing like the Terrapagos like popping up on a number of teams. I believe actually it was the most common restricted today. We're taking a quick We're taking a quick look back at Elijah's team. This is the Miraidon with the choice specs. With the Mienshao with Life Orb Mienshao to support the Miraidon, with the Chenpao Dragonite. Entei is another Pokemon that's a beneficiary of Sword of Ruin on the field. And then the Booster Speed Fluttermane, as you saw, that was putting in a lot of work.
It definitely was, and that's a Booster Energy Fluttermane without Icy Wind for speed control, because you really don't need speed control on Elijah's team. You just hit hard, ask questions, never.
Not only that, but you also have the priority available to you if you're able to either Ice Spin away the Psychic terrain or to set up your Electric terrain.
Exactly.
And for Joven's team, it's a Specs Terrapagos, more similar to what Adit was running, except for it's like a mix of like Adit and Hunters, where got the Dark Pulse and the Sleep Talk, which were the flex moves on Hunters and Adit's Terrapagos respectively.
Yes, and no Earth Power kind of makes it a little unfortunate for Elijah's team with the Entei and the Miraidon, because Earth Power being super effective against both of those Pokemon with the Choice Specs and the Beads of Ruin. Like, that is really good. But we also look at Joven's team now. Elijah's Miraidon and Fluttermane, as long as they're on the field, they do not want to take a Snarl. They do not want to lower their special attack. Joven's Raging Bolt does not have Snarl. It's 3 electric moves and Draco Meteor with that Assault Vest.
Another thing to note as well is because Tornadus is on the team, Joven's Raging Bolt actually has foregone Electro Web.
That's yeah, getting a Thunderbolt for extra damage on that. But also the Urshifu Rapid Strike, Surging Strike's Close Combat Taunt and Detect. Not even Aqua Jet. Very interesting.
Not only that, but also the Safety Goggles, which would be very helpful into opposing Amoonguss. I imagine he's played into a couple already to get into Top Cut. That one's not going to matter as much here, but I mean, it's kind of a give and take when you do the team building. I imagine that's going to be very good to basically slow down opposing Amoonguss, to stop like opposing Tornadus from like getting more than just like their Tailwind up, stopping Whimsicott from like threatening everything else with Encore. I understand like the team building decisions behind this. It's just kind of one of those things with giving and taking when it comes to team builder. Looking at Elijah's leading off with Mienshao and with Miraidon, and Joven leading off with Tornadus and with Terrapagos.
So Terrapagos activates its Terra Shell to get that Terra Shell transformation here. But now the real interesting question, this means Shell does have Fake Out, which means that it could break the Terra Shell right now.
Another thing that could be of note is that if Joven feels comfortable ripping the Terra off, going Terra turn 1, can actually just get rid of the Electric Terrain right now and just make the Miraidon have to switch out, or it just loses what I like to call life orbs.
That is definitely an option here, but we're actually seeing Joven opt to go for the Bleakwind Storm here as he switches out the Terrapagos into the Raging Bull, potentially trying to go into that Choice Specs Electro Drift into that slot. With the Fake Out coming out into the Raging Bolt here, and it loses some of HP. That was good damage even through that, but it ends up being a Volt switch.
That is the least amount of damage I've ever seen a Miraidon do. It's not hitting a ground type.
And that's with the quad resistance and the assault vest activating that, but also that's electric terrain and choice specs with the same type attack bonus.
And Hadron Engine. That's a lot of modifiers being messed with.
As we see Dragonite come out here, and Tornadus goes for Bleakwind Storm, and it does enough to knock out the Mean Shao, so now Wide Guard is completely removed from the remainder of this battle for Elijah.
That Terrapagos is actually in a pretty comfortable position now next time it hits the field to actually click Terra Starstorm, especially if you decide to use Terra Stellar on it. There's the Chen Pao coming in as well right now.
But now this is the interesting scenario that Elijah has Joven in. Because the Chen Pao and Dragonite are out on the field, that brings up the possibility of Extreme Speed plus Sucker Punch, or Extreme Speed plus Ice Spinner, or Outrage plus Sucker Punch, or Outrage plus Ice Spinner, or anything. Like there's
a lot of damage that's being threatened right now.
There is a plethora of moves being chosen right now, and all of them have to deal with that potential of the Terra normal extreme speed coming out from this Dragonite.
So we see Joven switch out the Tornadus into the Chi-Yu. This Chi-Yu is Focus Sash, so I'm assuming the play is he wants to actually just tank one of the attacks on the Chi-Yu.
While Elijah's opting to activate his Terra Orb into that Dragonite.
Terra Normal.
Terra Normal is a Dragonite's best friend with that Choice Band. But now this Dragonite is almost assuredly going for that extreme speed, I would dare to assume. But we do see a Terra coming out on the side of Joven as well. He is
Terra
activating
Electric.
Terra Electric Raging Bolt coming out here to really power up any attacks that it goes for here. But it all depends on what this priority bracket is going to be. Did this Dragonite go for extreme speed? It did go for extreme speed. Choice Band sort of ruined Terra Normal, and Raging Bolt is down. I want to talk about power right there, Matt. That is power. And an Ice Spinner coming out on the Chen Pao slot. This is big because it ends up breaking the Focus Sash.
Not only that, but this also removes the electric terrain, which would be bad, but since Miraidon, when it switches back in, will set the electric terrain again, what this effectively does is it lets Elijah actually reset his own electric terrain timer. And now that we have Terrapagos on the field, this is actually a very interesting scenario because you have to kind of be very careful here because this, as you can see, it's threatening plus like Sucker Punch in the Terrapagos slot. There's a lot of potential damage that can be put in here on the Terrapagos, even with Terra Shell still active.
And even though it would be not very effective on the extreme speed through the Choice Band and the Terra Normal,
This is a lot.
There's going to be a lot of damage additives add-on. Not to mention that Chen Pao would be faster than the Terrapagos. So a Sacred Sword could potentially come out and it would knock out that Terrapagos potentially now that it doesn't have that Stellar Terra.
Not only that, but it's also because it's choice specs, you just don't have Protect.
We see the extreme speed come out into the Terrapagos here. This is Choice Band, Terra Normal, Sword of Ruin into the Terra Shell, over 50% on a critical. Okay, critical hit. And the Sucker Punch comes out into the Chi-Yu.
That one hangs on, which is actually pretty big here.
Heatwave comes out, and it doesn't knock out the Dragonite. Oh, but can it knock out the Chen Pao maybe with a burn?
Find out.
Oh, nope. No burn, but
the Dragonite's off the field, which is probably the more important thing to be worried about here.
It's very possible, but at the same time, now that Terra Shell is broken, this is a Chi-Yu and a Terrapagos in front of a Chen Pao and a Miraidon.
There's a little bit of the worry here is that Tobin kind of really needs to have Tailwind up right now if he wants to just try to close the game out. And the question is going to be, how do you do that? Because Chien-Pao, as we've seen, enables a lot of really strong physical damage and can take advantage of it pretty well itself. But Miraidon, we've talked about this before, it's like a bus.
Yes, it hit.
Dare I say it hits like a fleet of buses sometimes.
Maybe a fleet of buses, some golf carts, maybe a Chevy Trailblazer.
Oh, what is the line? It's like I'm cool, and if not, then let me be struck by a flying ice cream truck. This one won't, though.
Please do not land an electro drift on the bathers.
Well, bye, turtle.
Unfortunately, this Terrapagos goes down.
I figure that's probably going to be the best thing like he could do to try to get the Tailwind set up, is Terrapagos couldn't protect, and you really couldn't guarantee that Tornadus wasn't going to be taking an electro drift in that slot. G comes back in. Biggest worry here is actually that the Chien-Pao can click Sucker Punch into the Chi-Yu.
A Sucker Punch and an Electro Drift, and it's...
Yeah, Sucker Punch into the Chi-Yu and Electro Drift into the Tornadus would actually just lock the game up itself anyway. I think Joven recognizes that and is taking the... He's just conceding the game now and using this probably as a chance to just, like, assess, like, what went on in the game and, like, how to adapt. Because that's a big challenge when you play into Miraidon is... You just give the position to click an Electro Drift, we're losing a Pokemon. No ands, if, or buts about it.
Unless, I mean, even through the resist, like, sometimes you might end up losing a Pokemon, or at the very least, 2/3 of your health minimum.
You saw in an earlier round that Elijah was on, that a Terrapagos through Terra Shell only had, like, 10 HP to speak of after a resist.
Yeah, that's the Hadron engine, the Terra Electric, the choice specs into the Terra Shell.
Now imagine if Helping Hand was in that equation.
Imagine if Beads of Ruin was in that equation.
Let's say imagine both, but Chi-Yu does not get Helping Hand.
Thank God it
Unfortunately,
doesn't.
a fish cannot have hands.
Thank Big Arceus up above that it cannot have Helping Hand on the fish. Because if it got Helping Hand... Whoa, hold on. Let's take a break real quick on that one, because they gave the other Fire Dark type Helping Hand this generation. Who's to say in Generation 10 they don't give the fish the Helping Hand?
Well, you see Incineroar, it has hands.
It does have hands, but...
If anything, the Pokemon that you're concerned about having Helping Hand would be Farigiraf, because that's got hooves. That being said, we actually see them in Team Preview right now. Going back to what I was saying, though, about Joven is... I think that there is potential for the Terrapagos to actually use its Terastallizing pretty early in order to actually try to mitigate the Miraidon's position.
There's a possibility that it can go for that. At the same time, just by your Terastallation on something like a Terrapagos there, even with the choice specs and that Terra Starstorm, it's going to do big damage to Elijah's team, but with all that priority, it's hard to justify it.
All right, we see Mienshao and Miraidon coming in.
Versus Tornadus and Chi-Yu this time around. Now, here's the interesting point to note, ladies and gentlemen. This Tornadus is the standard Covert Cloak set, so a fake out into that spot wouldn't be a problem. However,
the Chi-Yu is actually Terra Ghost.
Chi-Yu is Terra Ghost, but now with this Miraidon, it does have Wide Guard. Mienshao will have Wide Guard, which is very interesting. If it goes for something like a Wide Guard into this spot, then Bleak Wind Storm can't do anything. And if Joven tries to go for something like a Snarl or a Heat Wave, it would be nothing.
Looking at this, though, it looks like Joven's just setting up the Tailwind. Oh.
Went for a double protect here.
I did not realize it was a double protect. My bad. I imagine that was a scout for the fake out. And showing that the Miraidon is actually voice locked into Electro Drift.
No, it's locked.
Oh, it was locked in the Volt Switch.
It was Volt
Never
Switch.
mind. I need to learn how to read.
No, it's in the Volt Switch. But now this Mienshao, it kind of has its mindset a little down. Like, does it want to go for Wide Guard again, or does it go for something maybe like a close combat into this Chi-Yu, knowing that that Terra Ghost could be an option? We do see the Volt Switch come out into the Raging Bolt, once again doing little damage, but the more important strategy is the Miraidon gets switched out onto this battlefield.
This is going to be a great showcase of, like, why many people are saying that the best move on Miraidon isn't even Electro Drift, but rather Volt Switch, is because when it comes to the sheer damage that Knockoff from the... Oh, knocks off the Focus Sash from the Chi-Yu.
And we see Overheat.
Not in Sun, nor Helping Hand boosted, but
Just
still
a-
Beads of Ruin boosted.
That means just a little bit cooked from that hit.
Just a little.
Just a little bit from that Shiyu. I mean, but we were talking about the helping hand. I mean, it technically has fins, so you know.
What are fins but fish hands?
What is today but yesterday, tomorrow?
All right, so now we're going to be probably the Chen Pao come in. Just Chen Pao Dragonite, you know, the old tried and true. We saw it last game. But
now
actually a very scary thing about like playing into like Miraidon Hyper Offense is there's a lot of Pokemon that synergize well with each other that you can just sit there and just keep clicking damage with. And in Elijah's position right now, he's actually pretty free to click a Terra Normal and just threaten damage into something.
You see a switch out here on the Raging Bolt into that Tornadus slot here. So this is interesting. I believe Joven is trying to call that Extreme Speed into the Raging Bolt again, but this might be interesting because we do see the Terrassalization on the Dragonite and bringing out that Terra Normal once again. And honestly, with the band on the Terra Normal, we know that that's part of Terravica's thing. Who's to say the choice band isn't right there and we just can't see it?
Well, I think it's probably like worth just thinking about like that. Oh, Joven actually gets one shot by the Terra Normal Extreme Speed there.
That is a one-hit knockout, and the Chen Pao going for that sucker punch here. In the
Chi-Yu
Chi-Yu.
hangs on
It does
pretty
hang
well.
It does hang on, but this is the most important thing. The Heat Wave hits is -2 and still does major damage onto that Chen Pao.
The scary thing now is you with like Terrapagos, you're still susceptible to the Sacred Sword, and that is still the potential for a Choice Band boosted Sword of Ruin boosted Extreme Speed to still hit your Terrapagos anyway. It's actually a little bit of a scary matchup right now for Joven. I think that Miraidon actually has trouble in the Terrapagos because of Terraform Zero being able to get rid of Miraidon's modifiers, but that's kind of the interesting thing to know about Regulation G is just like even though there's like these big restricteds that are doing a lot of damage, still 5 other Pokemon you got to deal with.
Exactly, and now he's trying to decide on what he wants to do here because this Chen Pao could go for that Sucker Punch because we saw how much the Terra Normal Choice Banded Extreme Speed did to Raging Bolt on the last turn. I mean, it was enough to knock it out even after the Volt switch damage.
Oh yeah.
But now it remains to be seen, like, what's going to happen. Is this... I mean, could Raging Bolt maybe live? Maybe that was a damage roll. We have no idea.
There's the chance on that, but then you also got to think about the potential for a double up there, which forces the Chi-Yu, for example. No, you can't tank it with that.
We see a Protect come out on the Chi-Yu, and in comes that Terra Normal Choice Banded E-Speed once again, and it does not enough. It was a damage roll the last time, but a Sacred Sword, a double up into the Raging Bolt, and Raging Bolt is down.
If you're Joven in that scenario, that's a very dicey play to try to go for because you can't guarantee that the Chi-Yu would actually get through that turn unless you protect it.
Was crazy of a turn right there. The fact that it actually lived the Terra Normal E-Speed this time around. That is...
It looked like it was a damage roll then.
That is a crazy play to make. But now we see Terrapagos is on the field. These are the last 2 Pokemon for Joven. And I believe he did activate his Terra Orb on Terrapagos here to get that Terra Starstorm out here. So now
the scary thing too is that this Chi-Yu is still at -2. It never got the chance to switch out, so now it's stuck in at -2.
Terrapagos has returned to its Stellar Terra form, and now it's a pure Stellar Terra, which is still a normal type in terms of defensive calculations, but I want to see how much damage this is going to do. This is Choice Banded Extreme Speed with a Sword of Ruin, not with a Terra Shell anymore. Oh my god.
You have to think about the Sacred Sword potentially into... Oh!
Into the Chi-Yu.
What this means now, though, is that Joven's going to be able to clear the field, but it's going to be Miraidon versus Terrapagos, and more important thing is that Miraidon's coming in with the terrain set up. So, it comes down to, do you think that Miraidon Choice Specs boosted, Electro Drift, sitting here talking about Miraidon Cal, so you saw what it did to a Terra Shell.
It might hurt.
Comes down to how these Pokemon are trained in speed, but Miraidon's naturally actually already very fast. This is actually just prime position, I think, for Elijah. Able to bring in Miraidon safely in the back. We would just click an Electro Drift and finish out the game.
Here comes that Electro Drift. This is Choice Specs Hadron Engine.
And it was a crit.
And it was a critical hit. That, I mean, it probably didn't matter. It probably didn't matter, but it might have. It might have. I mean, we all know crits matter.
Oh, yeah.
We all know the crits matter. But
the interesting thing about this game, though, is, yeah, like the header says, Bow Knight never fails.
Bow Knight really never fails.
This is also a really good example of what I was talking about before, and I've come to the belief myself as a player that Volt Switch is actually Miraidon's best move, because it's talking about it whenever we were in Orlando, and we've seen it happen a couple of times. It's crazy when your utility move one-shots Pokemon.
This is also true, but also we have to keep in mind, like how you said, it's its best move because of it being like a utility move and a pivot move. While the Hadron Engine sets up electric terrain, thereby preventing something like a Spore from the Amoonguss, Electro Drift is a contact special move. So if Amoonguss Rage Powders into that Miraidon,
It can take Rocky Helmet Chip.
it takes Rocky Helmet Chip from that Electro Drift. You wouldn't think a special type move would take Rocky Helmet damage, but in the case of Electro Drift, it is a special type move that makes contact with your opponent.
I'm aware of that interaction as well because of Draining Kiss, actually.
Ah, with the Draining Kiss.
That said, let this be a good example showing you, like, another big thing about one of Miraidon's biggest strengths is you can afford to play, like, aggressively sacrificing Pokemon if it means you can bring in Miraidon safely, if it means that you can just, like, click a really big damage move right afterwards. Sometimes trading a Pokemon to bring in Miraidon safely afterwards, fine. Like, Miraidon also being, like, naturally a very fast Pokemon means you can full switch out. If you sacrifice a Pokemon because you know something's not surviving the turn, go ahead and sack a Pokemon that you don't really think is going to be able to finish out your endgame for you. And next time you can bring in Miraidon safely, or as you can see, you can hold it in the back and then might not actually need to bring it until in the back, and then you can just close out the game with it.
Now, what got me in that game too just now that I'm thinking about, I mean, we saw that Raging Bolt lived that Terra Normal, Choice Band, Sword of Ruin, Extreme Speed, but it didn't live the double up with the Sacred Sword. I wonder if Joven would have actually Terra Ghosted the Chi-Yu on that turn, because we saw he went E-Speed into the Terrapagos there. If Terra Shell comes out, then Terrapagos takes no damage. Well,
it takes like the half damage.
It takes like the half damage. But Terrapagos could go for Terra Starstorm into the Dragonite. It's locked in. And that's a single target move. Chi-Yu at -2, we saw how much damage it did to Dragonite and Shen Pao. I mean, you're risking a 90% accurate Heat Wave, but if it was a 2v1 in that situation...
The other thing, too, is also, I think there's potential for the Chi-Yu to actually Terra earlier in the game. Really worried about, say, taking a close combat from the Mienshao. We actually saw Elijah make a play into that line, because he clicked knockoff into that Chi-Yu earlier on in the game. That's why we noticed the Focus Sash getting taken off, which... actually covering for Terra Ghost on the Chi-Yu in that scenario.
Exactly, and that just shows the mind games of VGC. Like, when you think you know something, and even if you practice against it, you can't assume that that's gonna be...
It's not assault. Like, a good matchup's not necessarily an auto win. Like, Terrapagos, for example, being able to remove the terrain is always really good, right?
You would think, but it only works the first time. The first time it's on the field and it's terrestrialized is when everything goes away. It doesn't, like, you can't switch it out and it does it again. So
that's actually a really good matchup as well to show Volt Switch Miraidon, because it goes into exactly that.
Exactly. So you keep the electric terrain up. You still have a way to ensure that electric terrain stays around.
Oh yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, once again, congratulations to Elijah Tatum for advancing to top 4 at the Nerdy Needs Midseason Showdown. We're going to get into our semifinals momentarily, so don't go anywhere, and we will be right back.